Were Apex really the bad guys in Godzilla vs. Kong? Are humans really stupid for creating and ending the Oxygen Destroyer and King of the Monsters? Is MechaGodzilla truly evil in the Monsterverse? Find out more in Godzilla Breaking Dawn. Yeah. Those are the big Godzilla vs. Kong questions. Are the plot elements that the audience is supposed to see as antagonistic really antagonistic? When I first saw Godzilla vs. Kong, I knew for a fact that Walter Simmons and everyone at Apex were right, but why would the film try to antagonize Apex?
That power source may be our only hope. We gotta stop Godzilla.
This is a power beyond our understanding. You can't just drill into it.
Actually, we can.
And after I saw King of the Monsters, I also thought to myself, why would the film try to antagonize the military who created the Oxygen Destroyer?
Again,
Going for the juggler.
had the military not done the stupid thing and launched this thing,
man.
that would have been the finishing move.
It's over.
You know, he would have ripped off that head and gone for the other two, but no, human beings in their arrogance can't help but interfere.
These questions have since led me to debates and constant arguments where I would actually defend Apex, and I would even defend the Oxygen Destroyer. And that's what I'm here to talk about with you all today. Are the military and King of the Monsters bad guys and stupid for deploying the Oxygen Destroyer? Are Apex really the bad guys in Godzilla vs. Kong? And is MechaGodzilla evil? I want to go over my definitive stances real quick in case this video may seem a little all over the place. So, in my opinion right now, I think that Apex are not the bad guys. The military and King of the Monsters are not the bad guys, nor are they stupid for deploying the Oxygen Destroyer. And MechaGodzilla is not evil. Now, some of those statements seem a little crazy to you, just hang around, I'll explain everything in a sec. So, right now we first need to talk about the Oxygen Destroyer. The Oxygen Destroyer was the first majorly effective weapon used against Godzilla and King of the Monsters, and it was meant to kill King Ghidorah along with Godzilla. And many fans seem to view this weapon as if it's demonic and evil, but like, why? Why is the Oxygen Destroyer such a bad thing? I mean, coming from a basic logical standpoint, it's just like MechaGodzilla. It's a weapon, and as long as it's in the right hands, then there shouldn't really be any reason humans can't use it. There are a couple issues that the Oxygen Destroyer actually brings about, and I'm going to be going over both the issues it brings as well as the resolves that I came up with. Now, the only real issue with the Oxygen Destroyer is loss of life, you know, within that blast radius, but honestly, to cook an omelet, you gotta break some eggs. And the sacrifice of a couple fish dying to save thousands, if not millions of people? I mean, that's a trade that I'm willing to take any day. So, the one real major precaution is that the Oxygen Destroyers need to be deployed safely in an area far away from the human population. And if it's a situation we had like in Isla de Mara, where the Kaiju were fighting in the ocean, extremely distant and far away from the coast, then by all means launch that sucker. Another issue with the Oxygen Destroyer is, what if we have a threat like King Ghidorah? What if the Oxygen Destroyer doesn't work on a titan like Ghidorah who doesn't require oxygen to live? Simple. That's where MechaGodzilla comes in. You have MechaGodzilla be the one to assess that threat. MechaGodzilla sure as shit ain't no slouch, especially in the strength department. He can definitely handle his own in terms of strength and speed, possibly intelligence too if we take into account someone piloting him that has actual combat skill.
What's your game, huh?
Yeah. So if a Titan is completely immune to the Oxygen Destroyer, you can have MechaGodzilla assess that threat. I mean, it would get to a point where the government could create multiple MechaGodzillas for this. If there's only one MechaGodzilla in there, it could simply stall that Titan threat long enough to wait for either Godzilla or Kong, maybe even both of them. MechaGodzilla could be used to alert those Titans or quickly transport them to a designated area. Another resolution would be pure human intuition. Humans are smart enough to create all of these monarch bases, MechaGodzilla himself, multi-continental transportation systems, hollowing out a mountain for MechaGodzilla's base, etc. I'm sure if humans really wanted to, they could further improve the Oxygen Destroyer to affect Titans that don't require oxygen. I mean, they could probably just create some kind of atom destroyer in a liquid or gaseous form that just completely wipes out each and every cell of a Titan. If the writers wanted it, then it could definitely happen. The way I look at it in the Monsterverse is that if they can create all of this shit, then they can definitely create some kind of atom destroyer. Alright, so here's another potential issue with the Oxygen Destroyer. What if a good Titan like Godzilla or Kong is in the battle, just like what happened in King of the Monsters? We can't launch the Oxygen Destroyer because it would kill those two monsters. So to that I say, you're right. You are absolutely right. There is no way you can launch the Oxygen Destroyer if benevolent Protector Titans are caught in the mix. We can't have a repeat of the Ghidorah situation, and at this point in time, we can trust Godzilla and Kong's instincts. So the answer would be the same as the second issue's resolution. You have MechaGodzilla there to back up Godzilla or Kong. Whether it's one MechaGodzilla or multiple MechaGodzillas, have them team up with Godzilla and Kong to help defend the cities. And I'll touch more on this, like all the issues with MechaGodzilla in a second, but generally, if good Titans like Godzilla and Kong are already assessing the threat, either leave them alone or have a MechaGodzilla there, whether it's 1 or 10, to have them help out Godzilla and Kong. And one last issue with the Oxygen Destroyer centers around its original appearance in 1954. For those who don't know, a scientist by the name of Dr. Serizawa has discovered a devastatingly powerful weapon he called the Oxygen Destroyer. And upon discovery, Serizawa knew that if the weapon fell into the wrong hands, it could cause complete chaos amongst the entire world. The destructive potential of the Oxygen Destroyer was so astronomically large that Serizawa hid it from everybody, continuing to conduct his research in private. That is until Godzilla. When Godzilla attacked, Serizawa was convinced by his ex-lover Amiko to use his weapon to save the citizens of Tokyo and kill Godzilla. But Serizawa kept to his word on preventing the Oxygen Destroyer from getting into the wrong hands. He burned all of his notes and all of his research, and when it came to detonating the Oxygen Destroyer, Serizawa cut his line that would bring him back to the surface safely and unleashed the annihilation of the weapon. And after successfully killing Godzilla, he'd also taken his own life. In Godzilla vs. Destroyer, micro-oxygen was discovered and the threat of the Oxygen Destroyer loomed heavily. Serizawa's ex-lover Amiko had contacted the man who discovered this and warned him of the dangers the weapon had, asking if they could find another way to defeat Godzilla before he melts down and takes the entire planet with him. And so a heated ethical debate amongst characters ensued, and I personally think that that is one of the strong suits of Godzilla vs. Destroyer. Seeing this tough position that these characters are in and what lengths we'd have to go to in order to benefit mankind and save the Earth is really entertaining to watch. It really picks the brain, and the stakes are raised higher, and the film really makes you think. And I feel that's what Godzilla 1954 and Godzilla vs. Destroyer really do so well. With respect to the lore and the incredibly powerful allegorical message and importance that the Oxygen Destroyer has to Godzilla's history, none of this is present in King of the Monsters. And I'm not trying to dig at King of the Monsters. I mean, I've talked about that film more than enough on this channel in a negative way. And again, if you haven't heard my opinion on it, go ahead and check out my Kaiju Opinions piece. I've basically just said that I can enjoy it personally, but critically I can't. The point is that this ethical debate is not present at all in King of the Monsters. So with the military being the ones to create and use this weapon, it isn't in control of one person anymore, and the military are the ones who call the shots on how it's used. The fears that the original Dr. Serizawa and Amiko had are finally coming to fruition. But here's the thing, unless the entire military becomes corrupted or the place housing the Oxygen Destroyer becomes infiltrated, just like what we saw with the Orca and King of the Monsters, then the military is sure to use the Oxygen Destroyer safely, keeping in mind the blast radius and both the time and place of when to attack that certain Titan. So that should be enough to resolve the original issues of the Oxygen Destroyer falling into the wrong hands. Right now, I think it's in the right hands. As long as the military isn't robbed of such a powerful weapon, then these weapons can be used safely like it was in King of the Monsters. Unless the writers say fuck it and make up some completely nonsensical situation and reason for the military to play dumb and be reckless with it. But right now, I see it as a safe weapon that the military is sure to know how to use effectively. So with all these issues and all these solutions in mind, what other issues did the Oxygen Destroyer really bring? Well, as far as we know right now in the Monsterverse, nothing. It's by far humanity's greatest weapon. It can destroy all the earthly Titans, and it could be further improved to affect Titans like Ghidorah who don't require oxygen. The only real threat I could really think of would be if this weapon could cause a mutation like Destroyer, as that's kind of what we saw happen in Godzilla vs. Destroyer. I feel like it just depends on the writers, to be completely honest. Right now, nothing in canon points to that happening. But the fact that it is the Monsterverse and that if they wanted to do it, then they will by all means do it, and it could most likely happen, that's the only real thing that makes me fearful of that. And that's the thing with the Monsterverse, it's always changing based on each new film. The rules always change, and that's why you can't really definitively claim anything, since new things may always contradict old things or old theories that once made sense. But as of right now, nothing points to a mutation being able to happen, so I'm just gonna go with that. If the Oxygen Destroyer is in the right hands and all these solutions are kept in mind, then the Oxygen Destroyer is completely safe and there is nothing wrong with humans utilizing it to defend against Titans. I mean, they make as perfect weapons, and if they were to weaponize MechaGodzilla with multiple Oxygen Destroyers, then that would be one serious Titan. And I'll touch more on this later, but since we've been referring to MechaGodzilla so much, that raises the main ethical question of the title and of GVK. Are Apex really the bad guys? And is MechaGodzilla truly evil? Absolutely not. I want you guys to answer me this. How are Apex the bad guys? Humans have a right to build a line of defense for themselves against Titan threats. There are lives at stake. What if Godzilla can't make it to the Titan threat on time? Just like how his Titans didn't make it in time during King of the Monsters, when at that point Godzilla already killed Ghidorah and the city was annihilated. What if Godzilla can't make it at all if he's got his hands tied? Godzilla lives in the Hollow Earth now, so it's completely possible that other Titans could threaten his domain and Godzilla himself, which could prevent Godzilla from exiting his home to battle it out with that Titan threatening the humans. I mean, with all these ideas in mind, let's remember that Apex and humans in general reserve the right to build effective lines of defense against Titans. We have a right to defend ourselves and not completely depend on Godzilla to do it all for us. So I believe that Apex is completely justified in creating MechaGodzilla. However, GVK aims to vilify MechaGodzilla, and especially the Apex crew, but I don't think they're villainous at all, at least when it comes to their intentions. So we went over Apex's objectives and why they are completely morally justified in creating MechaGodzilla, so now that takes us to the issues of MechaGodzilla and him being evil. In what ways were MechaGodzilla actually evil? Well, the reasons GVK uses are simply because the mech is functioning off Ghidorah's DNA. That's the whole reason Godzilla is chasing MechaGodzilla down the entire film, because he senses Ghidorah's presence. And this is the only logistical reason the film has to vilify MechaGodzilla and Apex, yet even then, it's pretty pathetic. How are Apex supposed to know Ghidorah's consciousness would take over the mech? How are they supposed to know that something so impossibly stupid could happen? I mean, even for the Monsterverse, that seems pretty dumb, but it happened, and now they know not to use Titan DNA to bionically power their mechs. So other than using Ghidorah's DNA, there's no real reason that MechaGodzilla would be evil. It's a mech. There's no reason that it can't be rebuilt without the need of Ghidorah's DNA. I mean, they have all the blueprints. They have the Hollow Earth power source powering MG. There's a Monarch station in the Hollow Earth now. They could totally rebuild MechaGodzilla no problem. Actually, now that I think about it, that wouldn't be a bad idea. Monarch is most likely using the Heaves, which were once Apexes, to get to the Hollow Earth, or they constructed their own, and they have an all-access pass to the Hollow Earth energy sources. I can totally see Monarch rebuilding MechaGodzilla in a future film and making him quote-unquote good. That is until they find another bullshit way to turn MechaGodzilla evil or have multiple MechaGodzillas constructed, then get hijacked. Then we get a live adaptation of Rulers of Earth where Godzilla takes on multiple villainous MechaGodzillas. Monarch, the military, or Apex could definitely rebuild MechaGodzilla. But hey, just like how they could have reused the Oxygen Destroyer in GVK if they were really afraid of Godzilla, they probably won't. Why? Because plot. You can chalk that up to clumsy writing, but hey, we're getting off track. I'm drifting off now. Here are the final points. MechaGodzilla is not evil. Apex is not wrong for creating MechaGodzilla. Their only problem was using the DNA of King Ghidorah's skull to power the thing, and even when you consider that, it still doesn't make Apex evil. How are they supposed to know that that was gonna happen? Even for the Monsterverse's standards, that's still such ridiculous logic to the point where it even caught the humans in the film off guard. But if MechaGodzilla is rebuilt, Ghidorah DNA free, and Hollow Earth powered, then what's the harm? The lack of Ghidorah DNA would actually cause MechaGodzilla to be used in a heroic way as long as it's in the right hands, just like the Oxygen Destroyer. And see, at that point, fiction starts to bleed into reality as we ask ourselves real-world questions. How would you trust the government or military with such a powerful weapon? How do we, as citizens, rest our heads knowing that a rogue mech isn't gonna come barreling through our homes? It's like trusting your country's military with a nuke. Now that would be a whole other topic in and of itself, and I don't want to stray too far away from the main question at hand, but to briefly recap, MechaGodzilla itself, generally as a mech, is not evil. All the attempts I see of the community trying to vilify MechaGodzilla or Apex just make no cohesive sense whatsoever. So since we know how MechaGodzilla can actually handle threats, what are some of the other issues that would be brought about if it was actually in use? Well, for starters, you got the Ghidorah DNA causing him to go rogue thing, which we just talked about. It can easily be avoided with the cunning technological ingenuity that humans have. Plus the blueprints and the Hollow Earth energy data, it's highly unlikely that that would happen again. And if it does, I'm baffled at human stupidity in the Monsterverse again. So aside from the Ghidorah DNA point, what other issues are there? Now, the only ones that I could think of are that, for one, EMP immunity. I'm not so sure if MechaGodzilla can even be affected by an EMP. The designers claim it's possible, but you know, that input might not have transferred to the final product. MechaGodzilla isn't completely electrical, and I feel as though humans would have made the mech able to withstand EMPs, considering it doesn't even fully run off pure electricity, and the Mutos also exist. The humans would have had some pretty good experience with the Mutos at this point, who were pretty much the first monsters to appear in public, you know, at least when it came to the entire world knowing about monsters. I mean, they created a whole freaking mission based around the Mutos EMPs, preventing the soldiers from flying into San Francisco in 2014. That was the whole point of the Halo jump sequence. So they know how Titan EMPs work. And that's why I feel as though humans had created MechaGodzilla with the idea of Titan EMP abilities in mind, rather than making him strictly an anti-Godzilla weapon. If they did create him to be purely, you know, against Godzilla, and they didn't take into account things like other Titans and all their abilities, then that's something that humans could add to MechaGodzilla if they rebuilt him, knowing he would act as a human defender as opposed to just an anti-Godzilla weapon. So we have a conflict and resolution of the whole Titan EMP potential weakness for MechaGodzilla. Another potential issue I see would be getting hacked, but I don't think the military would allow for this to easily happen. I mean, they can use NordVPN. Ladies and gentlemen, this video is brought to you by NordVPN. No, I'm kidding.
This video is brought to you by Raid Shadow Legends.
No, but honestly, I don't think MechaGodzilla would be made easy to hack. I'm sure there'd be some, like, super encryptic barriers to prevent that. But again, the same thing happened with the Orca and the lasers getting shut down in King of the Monsters, so it could be totally possible if the writer's so pleased. Logistically, they'd have some pretty heavy security to prevent that, what with, you know, the passing of time and the improvements of technology. So I doubt it, but, you know, that's real world logic. If the writers want to, they've made it very clear that they would just ignore that. So honestly, the only real issues with recreating MechaGodzilla is making sure it can withstand other tiny EMPs, and that it's secure enough to not get, you know, hacked or hijacked or go rogue. Ghidorah DNA free, powerful as ever thanks to the Hollow Earth energy sources. There you go, you got yourself humanity's greatest defender. Aside from that, it's just like with Apex. MechaGodzilla is not evil, and humans have every right to rebuild this thing and defend ourselves. Fans really underestimate humans in this universe. Humans have developed the extremely effective Orca, as well as weapons like missiles that are confirmed to be able to hurt titans like Godzilla due to being further evolved and improved since 2014. MechaGodzilla's own missiles are just like this, as are the jets we saw in GVK and so on. Honestly, even the basic tanks in 2014 were just like this. They made Godzilla literally retreat and break through the Golden Gate Bridge. Hey, that might be an inconsistency, but you know, whatever. The Orca and these improved kaiju-fitted weapons and artillery are just two more human creations that can aid in Titan defense, and in a completely ethical manner too. So that's what humans should do. Build multiple MechaGodzillas fitted with Orcas in their mounts and oxygen destroyers in their wrists. MechaGodzilla's got the speed, it's got the strength, it's got the agility, it's got the advantage of being mechanical. They can literally send MechaGodzilla back to base for an iOS update. They could always improve MechaGodzilla and make it even stronger or even faster. I honestly feel like the next step is granting it the ability of flight, which I'm not so sure it even has, to be honest. If it does, then awesome. If not, get on it! And there you go, everybody. Apex are not the bad guys, MechaGodzilla is not evil, the Oxygen Destroyer is not a bad weapon to use against Titans, Apex had no idea of knowing MechaGodzilla would go rogue thanks to Ghidorah's DNA, and humans should rebuild MechaGodzilla. Ghidorah DNA free, EMP proof, and outfitted with Orcas and Oxygen Destroyers, there's your ultimate weapon to defend mankind against Titans. There should be no problems with Godzilla or Kong if either of this is communicated to them. Godzilla won't sense Ghidorah's DNA, and you can literally sign to Kong that MechaGodzilla is good. And bam! Build multiple versions of those MechaGodzillas, and you've got yourselves a world that doesn't need to depend on Godzilla or Kong to defend against Titans. And again, this could be completely wrong by the time future movies come out. They can either make a monster who could annihilate multiple MechaGodzillas, or have MechaGodzilla get hijacked or hacked. Probably just retcon Apex's goals and say some shit like Simmons was gonna destroy the entire world because he's evil, and the military ran out of oxygen destroyers because fuck the blueprints we saw in King of the Monsters, right? To hell with your logic, to hell with MechaGodzilla, hell with Ren Serizawa, fuck this bald chick, fuck this fucking soldier, fuck the way Mark runs, fuck Bryan Cranston, fuck Jimmy Kimmel, fuck Gal Gadot, fuck Kong's ass, fuck Behemoth, and fuck everything.
Take back what you said about Behemoth right now.
Okay, I'm sorry. Behemoth is cool. Please don't hurt me. Alright, thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know what you think down below, and subscribe for more. This is King Kong 9100 signing out. Until next time, bye-bye.
But we don't quit. Enjoy ramping.